So the theory of electronic spectra. So this electron spectroscopy is an analytical technique which is used to study the electronic structure and also to study the dynamics of the electrons which are present in atoms and molecules. It's completely about studying the how the electron arrangement is present in an atom or molecule and what are the various dynamics of the electrons present in them. So here these are normally studied with the help of this electron spectroscopy, and which includes a group of analytical techniques. So in this electron spectroscopy, for the formation of this electron spectra, here we see two types of electron formations. One is photoelectrons and the other is Auger electrons. So the group of techniques which comprise of this electron spectroscopy are the X-ray photoelectron spectroscopy, shortly called as XPS, which is also known as electron spectroscopy for chemical analysis, which is abbreviated as ESCA. And then the other technique which is involved is EELS, which is called electron energy loss spectroscopy. And then we have this UPS, which is ultraviolet photoelectron spectroscopy. And then we have AES, which is Auger electron spectroscopy. To study these two types of electrons, which are photoelectrons and the Auger electrons, we are having these various techniques which are included in this electron spectroscopy. So here these techniques are used to identify and also to determine the elements and the electronic structures from the surface of the test sample. The electron spectroscopy is normally used for studying only the surface of a chemical species. Only the information will be available from the surface of the element. So why is that so? That is because the forward photoelectrons or the angular electrons are having very less energies. So because of these lower energies of these two types of electrons, only the information from the outermost shells can be obtained. So here this electron spectroscopy is also given another name, which is called surface chemical analysis. The analysis techniques or the technique of study which is used for the studying only the surface of the chemical of a species. So in this electron spectroscopy, let us see the mechanism of the formation of the auger electrons or the photoelectrons. So as here we have the picture here. So here in this electron spectroscopy, when an X-ray or UV radiation or a beam of electron bombardment, so any of these three, when they are targeting the innermost shell of an atom or innermost shell of an ion or a molecule, that means they have to eject an electron here. So in the electronic energy levels, when they are focusing on an innermost shell of an electron, one electron it will receive, it will take the energy or it will absorb the energy from these X-rays or from the electron bombardments or from the UV radiation, and they get emitted out. As they are taking the energy, they absorb the energy and they get excited. So because of this excitation, one photoelectron is produced. The electrons which are produced because of taking the energy from a photon is called photoelectron, and that photon can be from an X-ray or it can be from an UV radiation. So whenever there is a formation of a photoelectron, that means whenever there is a ejection of electron from the inner shell, it results in formation of a hole. So as the electron gets ejected out, it results in formation of a hole in the place. So as to fill that hole, an electron from the higher energy level, it just descends down trying to fill that hole. So just a hole is created and so when a photoelectron is ejected out, a hole is created. So to fill that hole, an electron from the higher energy level will descend down to fill that hole. So during this process, when an electron is coming from higher energy level to lower energy level, it emits the radiation. When it is going from lower to higher, it absorbs radiation. Here what is happening? It is coming from higher to lower. So here emission of radiation will be there. So here the emitted radiation will be fluorescent radiation. So the fluorescent radiation contains again the particles of energy, packets of energy, which are nothing but photons. So such emitted radiations here are called the fluorescent photons. So here, when an electron is descending down in resulting formation of a fluorescent photon, the next adjacent electron from the higher energy level, so from where it is descending now, the next adjacent electron, it gets ejected out. So this ejection is called angular phenomena, and that results in liberation of angular electron. As the photoelectron is liberated out, the adjacent electron will be ejected out. So that electron formed is called angular electron, and the phenomena is called angular phenomena. So this is the formation of photoelectron and angular electrons. So these two type of electrons, whether it is photoelectron or angular electron, though they are different in their physical origin, they carry the similar chemical information. Their origin is different, but the information that they are carrying is same about the chemical species. And the energies. So for every chemical species, the energy of liberation of a photoelectron or the energy of liberation of an angular electron is characteristic. So with the help of these energies, we can easily identify what type of chemical compound it is. So this electron spectroscopy is used for identifying a chemical species and also to find out the dynamics of the electron present in an atom or a molecule. So here, let us see the energies related to the photoelectrons and the angular electrons. So here, the photoelectrons are associated with the binding energy, and which is given by the formula E binding equals to h nu minus E kinetic by null. So here E binding is nothing but the binding energy of the photoelectron. H nu is the radiation energy of the incoming radiation of the particle. E kinetic is the kinetic energy of the photoelectron, which is measured by the device, and null is the work function. So this work function is also given by the device itself. And then kinetic energy of the angular electron. We have seen the binding energy of photoelectron. Now we are going to see the kinetic energy of the angular electron. So the kinetic energy of the angular electron is given by E kinetic equals to h nu minus EB minus EC. So here h nu is nothing but the same, the energy of the incoming radiation of the particle, and then E kinetic is the kinetic energy of the angular electron. EB is the first outer shell binding energy, and EC is the second outer shell binding energy. That means here EB minus EC are nothing but the differences in the energy levels of two energy levels. So when they are moving from one energy level to the next energy level, one is taken as first outer energy level and the next one is taken as the second energy level. So the differences between these two energy levels is given by EB minus EC. So that was about the theory of electronic spectra, and now coming to the theory of atomic spectra. So here an atom consists of so many electrons. So in electronic spectra we have seen the electronic transitions of one electron. That gives, either we have studied about photoelectron or about the angular electron. But here in this atomic spectra, as an atom has more electrons, each electron will emit certain radiation of different wavelengths, and the collection of all these electrons emitted radiation will give you the atomic spectra. So atomic spectra is normally a collection of spectral lines. Okay, there is a collection of spectral lines of different electrons which are involved in different transitions. So the atomic spectra are defined as the spectrum of the frequencies of EMR emitted or absorbed during the transitions of electrons between the energy levels within an atom. So within an atom, whatever energy transitions are happening between an electron, all these are given by this atomic spectra. So each element has a characteristic spectrum through which it can be easily recognized. So for each and every element we have a characteristic atomic spectra, just like electronic spectra which is characteristic, atomic spectra is also characteristic for all the elements. And then in an atom, the electrons have discrete and some specific energies. There are more energy states in an atom than there are in electrons. As one atom has so many electrons, obviously the number of energy levels will also be more. So here in this atomic spectra we are having three types of spectra again: emission spectra, absorption spectra and continuous spectra. So emission spectra. So here, for an emission to happen, first absorption of radiation should be there. Unless there is absorption of radiation and an electron, when it travels from lower energy state to higher energy state, once it absorbs the radiation and goes to higher energy state. As the higher energy states are very unstable, they again come back to the ground state, liberating out the radiation. So that liberated radiation is nothing but the emitted radiation. So for an emission should happen, first absorption should happen. So here the radiation spectrum produced due to absorption of energy by a matter. So first the emission spectra to happen, we first need to have the absorption of radiation. Okay. So when an electron of an atom, molecule or ions get to a higher energy state than the ground state, which is a stable state, ground state is normally a stable state, whereas higher energy states are unstable states. Due to the absorption of radiation, they are said to be excited. So when they are moving from ground state to a higher energy state, they are said to be excited. The emission spectra is produced when energy is supplied to a sample through heating or radiation. The energy can be supplied either by heating or irradiation. And the wavelength of the frequency of the radiations emitted by the sample is observed as function of energy. So when energy is given through heating or irradiation, they take that energy and they go to the excited state. So once they have gone to the excited state, as it is a very highly unstable state, they descend to the ground state, emitting the radiation. So that emitted radiation is studied as a function of energy. So here next comes the absorption spectra. So absorption spectra is completely opposite to the emission spectra. So here this will be a little different, like when a continuous radiation is directed to a sample which absorbs the radiation, certain radiations will be absorbed and some are left unabsorbed. Here absorption radiation is nothing but that remaining unabsorbed radiation. It is usually the unabsorbed spectrum. That means it is just the transmitted radiation. For an emission to happen, it should absorb radiation, it has to go to the higher state and then it emits the radiation. When it's coming down to the ground state, it emits the radiation. So as we have seen, for emission to happen, absorption should be there. But that is studied in emission spectra. But here in absorption spectra, so when a sample is given a radiation, when certain amount of radiation is given, some of it is absorbed and remaining is unabsorbed. That unabsorbed radiation is actually studied in absorption spectra. So here in the absorption spectrum, and let us see a picture here. So in the absorption spectrum, whatever is unabsorbed, when sample is bombarded with a radiation or when a radiation is passed on to a sample, some of it will be absorbed and that absorbed radiation will be seen as dark lines and the remaining unabsorbed will be seen as bright lines, and that constitutes the absorption spectrum. Whereas in emission spectrum, whatever are absent in the emission spectrum are present in the absorption spectrum as the bright lines. So that means in absorption, whatever are absorbed are used for they are used for sending the electrons to higher energy level. From there they are getting emitted. They get down to the lower energy state and they get emitted. So that is seen as emission. So here in absorption, whatever are the dark lines are bright lines in emission, and vice versa. Whatever are dark lines in emission are the bright lights in absorption spectroscopy. So we can say absorption spectrum. So these are nothing but the transmitted radiations. Whereas emission spectrum, they are absorbed and then they are emitted radiations. And then third type of spectra that we have is continuous spectra. So continuous spectra is obtained when a ray of white light is passed through a prism or onto a water droplet. So when they are passed onto a prism, as we can see here, the ray of white light, it gets into the prism and then it gives us a continuous band. So that continuous band is having different wavelengths. It gives a visible light of different wavelengths. So here the continuous radiation that we are getting it will not have any discrete lines. That means there is no separation between the different wavelengths that we are seen in this radiation. So that is why it is called continuous, because there are no separation. Okay, there is no separation between two adjacent wavelengths in this continuous spectrum. And then when this light, when the speed of light as it changes with the medium, so as the medium changes, the light with the longest wavelength, that means the red, so that here, so the light with the longest wavelength, so red has the longest wavelength, so that deviates more when compared to the light with the shortest wavelength, which is the violet. So here in comparison, as we are seeing, continuous absorption and emission spectra. So absorption and emission, they have lines in between. So here the continuous spectra, they do not have any lines, as we have seen in the definition, they do not have lines and they are continuous. So the name has come as there are no lines or separations in between the different wavelengths. And for calculation of this wavelength of the spectra, wavelength of this atomic spectra, we have 1 by lambda equals to Rz square into 1 by N1 square minus 1 by N2 square. So here R is nothing but the Rydberg constant. Okay, R is nothing but Rydberg constant. It is given by 1.096 into 10 power 7 meter inverse, where Z is the atomic number. So whatever chemical species that we are going to study, that chemical species atomic number we are going to take. And then N2 is the upper energy level. So here N2 is the upper energy level and N1 is the lower energy level. And lambda, as we know, it is the wavelength of light. Okay, so whether it is atomic spectra or whether it is absorption spectra, whatever it is, atomic or electronic spectra or molecular spectra, it is studied between two different energy levels. So always we have the lower energy and higher energy levels, and the differences between the energy levels are taken. And then comes the theory of molecular spectra. So here the molecular spectra, here we can say in atomic spectra it has only electrons, and we see there the interaction of the electron with the nucleus only. So nothing else is there, electrons and the nucleus. But in molecule we have different other energy levels also. Along with the electronic energy levels, we have vibrational energy levels as well as the rotational energy levels also. So here there will be more transitions in molecular spectra in comparison to electronic and atomic spectra. So they are characterized, these molecular spectra, they are characterized by the absorption or emission of light over a much wide range of wavelengths than atomic spectra. So this is due to a very large number of transitions which a molecule can undergo in comparison to the relatively few electronic transitions of an atom. So as we were discussing, in atoms only electronic transitions will be there, but here in this molecular spectra on the molecule we have to study the transitions in electrons as well as rotational energy differences and as well as the vibrational energy differences. So this molecular spectra, what is the use of studying this molecular spectra? So here this molecular spectra is useful in determining the relative position of the atoms. So here the precise distance between the two atoms can be known, and also the bond angles between two atoms can also be known. So here actual placement of atom, the structural elucidation of a compound can be studied by using this molecular spectra. So but the drawback of this molecular spectra is, for a molecule to emit radiation, such radiations will be emitted only at high temperatures, but at high temperatures the molecules tend to undergo decomposition. So because of this decomposition, the emission of radiation cannot be studied. Only absorption of radiation can be studied by using this molecular spectra. That means in molecular spectra we only study the absorption of radiation but not the emission. So here the various types of energies produced by the molecules, there are three types of energies: translational energies, rotational energies and the vibrational energies. So translational energies are nothing but the kinetic energies possessed by a molecule by virtue of its motion, and here it also involves the change in center of mass of the molecule with respect to its surroundings. Okay, it is normally given by kinetic energy, where K equals to half mv square. Okay, so as a molecule or different electrons, whatever they are present in the molecule, when they are moving from one energy level to the next energy level, there will be the when they are in a ground state, when they are absorbing the radiation, they go to the higher state. So till then they will be in their same position. So once there is a kinetic, when they absorb the energy, the kinetic energy will be coming into play, and it is given by the kinetic energy of the molecule. And here, as they are moving from one place to the one energy level to next energy level, there will be a change in center of mass in comparison to its surrounding also. And then coming to the rotational energy. So here normally when the molecules are in gaseous phase, so when they are in gaseous phase, the molecules are very far apart from each other, and they have enough space so that they can rotate on their own axis. So any molecule, they have the space sufficient, like the size of the molecules, based upon the size of the molecules, they have enough space to undergo rotation. So because of this, if we can compare two situations here. One is, if a molecule is rich, what is the condition, and if a molecule is non-rich, what is the condition. So let us take an example of a diatomic molecule which is assumed to be rich. So when a molecule is to be rich, that means internal vibrations are not considered. So it is a rich molecule where there is no vibration, so the internal vibrations are zero. And these two molecules, because they are, the two atoms which are present in this molecule, they are composed of two atoms. They are of two masses m1, let us assume they are of two masses m1 and m2, and they are separated by distance r. So then the moment of inertia of the diatomic molecule is given by mu r square. I equals to mu r square, where mu is nothing but the reduced mass of the atom, where mu equals to m1 m2 by m1 plus m2. So to this moment of inertia, if we are applying the laws of quantum mechanics, so then the rotational motion of the diatomic molecules show that the rotational energy is quantized. So here we will be seeing what is the rotational energy for a rich molecule. So this is given by Eg equals to J into J plus 1 into h square by 8 pi square I. So here J is energy of one level, J plus 1 is the next energy level. So these two are the two different energy levels. H is the Planck's constant. Pi, as we know, it is 3.14, which is a constant value, and I is moment of inertia. So here J, it can be 0, 1, 2 and so on. So here the energy levels, that is J and J plus 1, they are very close energy levels, so it is represent. So if it is J is the lower energy level, the next energy level is indicated by J plus 1. So the molecular rotation spectra originate when a molecule undergoes transition from one rotational energy level to the next rotational energy level. So for a transition to occur between two rotational energy levels of a diatomic molecule, there are few conditions that has to be possessed. One is, it should have a permanent dipole moment. As the molecules, diatomic molecules, they both are rich, there should be a permanent dipole moment. And the other thing is the frequency of radiation. The frequency of radiation that is being incident upon the molecule must satisfy the quantum condition, which is Ej. So here minus of Ej equals to h nu. So this condition has to follow, and also the selection rule, J delta J equals to plus or minus 1. Delta J is nothing but the differences in the energy levels. As we are taking it as a J and J plus 1, so obviously the selection rule will be accepted. So one thing is it should have a permanent dipole moment. Second thing, the quantum condition minus Ej equals to h nu, that should be satisfied, and also the selection rule, that is the differences between the two energy levels should be plus or minus 1. So for a transition from an energy level denoted by J to that denoted by J plus 1. So from J to J plus 1, what will be the energy change that we are going to see? That equals to h nu equals to J plus 1 minus Ej. Higher energy level, energy of higher energy level minus energy of lower energy level. That means higher rotational energy level minus lower rotational energy level. So that is given by 2 into j plus 1 into h square by 8 pi square I. So on cancellation of h on both side and by simplification we get mu equals to 2b j plus 1. So here b is nothing but this whole term is taken as a constant and represented by b, which is b equals to h by 8 pi square I. This is the rotational constant for a molecule. Okay, so here b is taken as a constant, as all the terms here Planck's constant has a constant value pi 3.14, moment of inertia, so there is also a constant value. So all these constants are taken as the rotational constant of a molecule. So and then the vibrational energy. So in real, so as we have seen that a rigid case we have seen, now we will be seeing the non-rigid case. So in real, the molecules are not rigid, so they will be the nucleus which is present in the molecule will be always in constant vibrational motion. Okay, so here we will be seeing when the molecules are non-rigid. Okay, non-rigid as in there will be some vibration. So there in the rigid we have taken that internal vibrations are not considered, so internal vibrations are taken as 0, but here in the non-rigid system internal vibrations should be considered. So for such a non-rigid system, if the vibrational motion is approximated for being harmonic, okay, so the vibrational energy EV is equals to V plus 1 by 2 H mu naught. So nu is nothing but V equals to 1, 2, 3, which is nothing but the vibrational quantum number, whereas nu naught is 1 by 2 pi k mu power 1 by 2. So again pi is constant value, k is force constant, which is characteristic to the particular molecule. For each molecule we have a particular force constant value, and then mu is nothing but again the moment of inertia. So here let us see the necessary condition for a vibrational spectrum for a molecule. So here for a diatomic molecule, for its vibrational spectrum, here there should be a change in dipole moment. So earlier the dipole moment should be constant value for the rigid system, but for the non-rigid system there should be a change in the dipole moment, and as it undergoing, because it is undergoing vibration, that is V delta V equals to plus or minus 1, it should compulsory have a dipole moment, and the frequency of the radiation is given by mu equals to V equals to EV plus 1 minus EV by H, which is nothing but EV plus 1 and EV minus 1 are nothing but the energy levels, vibrational energy level of higher level, vibrational energy level of the lower energy level. So the difference is between two vibrational energy levels divided by H, which is nothing but a Planck's constant. So this is about the molecular spectrum.